Hello and welcome to All for United. We are back, and so are the poor results. So, not a lot has changed in that respect, but we are going to dissect all of the stuff that you would expect us to be dissecting on such a show. It's a little bit depressing, it is, but it always is when you lose to Liverpool. That's never going to be one that you sit there and take as a happy result. But regardless, we are going to, like all good fans do, talk it through. There's a few disagreements already gone on, which is going to be very intriguing. So that there is every possibility that one of us won't make it to the end of this show. But the answer to who that's going to be will, I'm sure, reveal itself as time goes through. We're not censoring opinions, by the way. You're absolutely welcome to have one. We have got a great team assembled today. The Fab Four would have been the Fab Five, but the fifth one is still on his way back from Old Trafford. So he is, on his way back from Old Trafford. I don't really need to add anything else to that, do I? But as far as I'm aware, he's missed any Legends cars, so he's okay. Other than that, Mr. Matt Morgan, how you feeling, mate?
A bit deflated, can't lie. To be honest, it sort of comes to a point now where it doesn't come as much of a surprise. At the moment, it's just you sort of sit there and you sort of weirdly become numb to it, because it just feels like last season all over again. But yeah, we're here, and I'm sure there'll be a good debate and also plenty of opinions. So yeah, should be a good show.
Well, let's hope so, Matt. Let's hope so, because we've already got 8 of you in there. And if you haven't clicked like, why not? What are you doing? You really need me to remind you. Beanie, lovely to have you over here as well. How are you feeling after all of that?
Yeah, I don't like losing to the Scouts. I mean, yeah, it's never good. I mean, it's never good losing a game, but it's never good losing to that lot, is it? But like Matt says, I think you get a little bit numb to it. But I'm sure we'll go into it, and I'm sure we'll dissect it as we do. But yeah, it's good to be back on the show, though. Enjoy a good chinwag with you boys.
There's going to be lots to dissect, I'm sure. Not least some people's brains. Isn't that right, Dan? How are you, sir?
I'm just glad that I could get back on the show. I had not been locked out yet, so that was a pretty good start.
You'll never be locked out, Dan.
I thought by
the whole purpose of this is be heard. So,
I agree with it wholly. Therapy in session. We need to talk about it, don't we? That's the only way to get past it. You need to have a chat about it.
Apparently so. So there we go. That's exactly what we are going to do. Here comes Johnny K. These days are too often against Liverpool now, to the point I'm no longer depressed about it. It's damaging for Ten Hag now, I feel. Could be the beginning of the end for him, but so many issues. Here we go. A new low, considering this is the third season of Eric Ten Hag's reign. And Twilumber suggesting that the first 20 minutes was 20 minutes FC is back. So we shall see. We shall see what people are thinking. I feel like, definitely got some of my glasses. I'll clean that for a minute. But it's horrible. You know what it's like, Dan. You're sitting there and everything's normal, and you just got this little blur somewhere, and it's so annoying. Beanie knows as well, to be fair. It's just Matt that doesn't.
Not yet.
Youngsters. It's outrageous. Right then, gang. We're going to get straight into it. Now, I'm very intrigued about the team. And the reason why I'm intrigued about the team is because we spoke about this on the preview, Dan, with regards to what we do. Now, I wouldn't have changed a thing. I would have kept the team exactly as it is, because we've got international break on its way. I thought it was very interesting. Bringing De Ligt in, I think, was interesting. Maguire dropping out from that. He's only been given, 20, 30 minutes tops in games. And now all of a sudden he was ready to go for 60 minutes. Even though there's not going to be a game for 2 weeks, it would have felt like if you're going to start him after the international break, potentially, try and maintain some consistency in the back. And obviously, Ahmad dropped for Garnacho to start. Aside from that, I sent the team over to Matt because he did the tweeting for today. And I pretty much got it right. The only thing I got wrong was bringing Amas in onto the bench, because apparently, why bring in a left back when you could put in the third goalkeeper? The thinking on that one. So there we go. But apart from that, wasn't a bad guess from me, I don't think. Dan, I'm going to come to you first on that one. what was your thoughts? Because you suggested you might have changed a couple. Were you happy with those changes?
I didn't spot the Amas thing, to be honest. That's threw me a little bit that we've gone with 3 goalkeepers on the bench.
You weren't the only one that didn't spot that, mate, so don't worry.
Yeah, that's really sent me for one. That the team, honestly, it's exactly what I expected. I didn't really have too many complaints with it. I can understand why he decided to bring in Dillit for this game. I think you see the way he played today, he does things on the ball a lot quicker than what Maguire does in that position. Not necessarily better, but quicker, which is better against the likes of Jota and co. So I could understand that change. It just feels like he trusts Garnacho more than he trusts Ahmad, which is the reason why he's brought him back in today. I don't necessarily that's a form thing. And then I was discussing earlier on with obviously Dan that used to come on the show about Rashford being started. He scores goals against the big team, so that's why he starts. And I don't necessarily think he's been in any worse form than anybody else up front this season. Our best forward this season has been Ahmad, so I was surprised that he's been dropped. But he was took out. But it doesn't shock me, to be honest. It's expected from Ten Hag because he does trust Garnacho. I was having a chat with Dan earlier saying that he's more effective from the right-hand side, Garnacho, as well. So for me, it should be Ahmad and Garnacho fighting for the right-hand side, and then probably going to end up being Rashford and Xerxes fighting for the left-hand side once Højlund's fit. I think that's the way it's going to go, and it's about having players in the right position. So honestly, the team lineup is not really a surprise. I thought it was probably bang on, and I don't think you could argue with it too much. Can't be too much criticism towards that team that started. You could possibly argue Garnacho left, Ahmad right, which again I get it, but it's a trust thing I think for Ten Hag. That interesting.
Matt, we'll come to you on this one then because I completely don't get it. Why Ahmad has looked as Dan said, our most threatening player, and then he's the one that's taken off for Garnacho to start, and I think Garnacho has been superb coming off the bench. I still maintain this idea that if you're playing a game of football and you look up at 60 minutes and see Garnacho coming on, that will strike fear into you as a defender, thinking, blimey, I've just done this for 60 minutes. Now I've got 30 minutes with a fresh Garnacho. That seems like some sort of fresh hell. But talk to me a little bit about the defence, because I'm amazed Dan didn't really mention too much there about Harry Maguire, and usually he takes every opportunity to talk about why Harry Maguire should have started. Were you quite content with Dillit starting over Maguire?
Yeah, I wasn't overly surprised that he started Dillit, to be honest. I think it was a matter of time, excuse me, that he would bring him into the starting lineup alongside Martinez. Obviously, Maguire played the first couple of games, but I think that was possibly down to Dillit not being quite up to full fitness, obviously having limited training. So yeah, I wasn't surprised by Dillit, but I was actually quite impressed with Dillit's performance, to be honest. I thought he was pretty solid, done everything pretty much spot on what he should have done. But yeah, it's like I say, it's the rest of the team that's letting them down more than anything, to be honest with you. And like I say, you've got players like Dillit in your team. They need the people in front of them that can actually do something with the ball and pass the ball. And that's exactly what we're lacking at the moment, which isn't helping. But yeah, defensively, I wasn't overly surprised. But yeah, Dillit coming in didn't surprise me. Again, wouldn't shock me if he'd have gone with Maguire. Wouldn't have surprised me if he'd have started Maguire again, though. Just to keep the consistency from the first 2 games. But no, I thought Dillit was done his job well, and it was a good full first debut for him.
Fair enough. And Beanie, for you, Dan was talking about this backstage whilst we were just doing the last minute preparations, and you seem to agree with it as well. So you're quite happy with the team that you put out.
Yeah, I mean, Dillit for me, this looks like a fixture for me that Ten Hag's been kind of nursing him to get to, sort of thing, giving him the few minutes here and there. I thought Dillit was going to start all day long. I did on my TikTok like a predicted lineup. I think the only one I got wrong was Ahmad. Ahmad for Garnacho, I think, was the only one I got wrong. So I thought he'd play Ahmad, and I don't see him dropping Rashford. So for me, Garnacho was going to start on the bench. I didn't have an issue with the team. The only issue I really had, we look a little bit short on the bench now. McTominay's gone. Like, Mount's obviously injured. Eriksen, his leggy, he's old. We look a little bit, when you looked at the bench at half time, Casemiro has to come off. Then it's Collier. I mean, he looks like he's got a great future, but we look a little thin on the bench now. like a few injuries and we look a little bit thin. But yeah, starting 11, I thought it was pretty obvious what he was going to do. I thought it was pretty spot on, to be fair.
Fair enough. And Dav's popped straight in with Garnacho and Delete had no bearing on another weak soft centre Ten Hag team. And I think the midfield is kind of where we need to go and focus, I think, for the first part of this. Now, I will preface everything that I'm about to say with the fact that I missed the first 50 minutes of the game. I was still finishing off with the Stevenage women game that we'd played, and so I didn't come in and turn it on until the third goal was literally just gone in. I got out of my car, made my way up there, and switched on the telly, and the first thing I saw was a blurry Mo Salah just running towards the camera, and I thought, oh well, that's the third one, isn't it? That's great. So you'll be pleased to know that from the moment I turned the telly on, everything was back and all right again. So a lot of what
it's your fault for not watching it all.
I can't help it. You know, it's not my fault. I've got jobs elsewhere and things to do. It's a tough life. It's hard being me. But nonetheless, it doesn't change the fact that I've kept up to date. I've had a look through. I've seen everything. I've looked at some of the highlights and seen everything that's going on. And it seems to me, we rarely do this, but it's basically 3 mistakes. And it's very interesting when you watch them because they are not quite carbon copies, but they're pretty darn similar, every single one. The first one, Casemiro gives the ball away. That one was unforgivable. The next two, Casemiro gets bullied off the ball. And then Mainu for the third one. Bullied off the ball. And the fullbacks are flying. Now, I put it to you, gentlemen, that is a midfield problem. Now, a lot of people I've seen on Twitter are going to sit there and say, it's the setup. But we're pushing away. The whole purpose of this is that we're now trying to counter-attack. So if you're playing with high fullbacks, which you're going to want to do, you want fullbacks to start bombing up and down, that's going to happen. The drama is if you get caught and the possession is lost, that's when you potentially leave yourself exposed. Now, Roy Keane was off on one of his rants about how the fullbacks have got to get back. But is that feasible? Do you think that the players could reasonably have got back and done anything that would have made any difference whatsoever? Onana stays on his line, to be fair, for pretty much all three. He doesn't really seem to come out and narrow an angle. So there seems to be a real thing about goalkeepers just staying on their line at Manchester United, because that's not just Onana now. That was De Gea before him. This is now, it's got to be a tactical thing that the goalkeeper is being told to stay put. Has to be, because otherwise, surely, any goalkeeper I know, you're taught this in under nines, come out and narrow the angle. So the fact that he hasn't, there's got to be some sort of tactical thing there. I'd like to know what you guys think about that. I'll kick off with you on that, on this one, because I agree with Beanie as well. I wouldn't necessarily say this was a game that was crying out for Scott McTominay, but when you look at your substitutes, you think, well, there's no Scott McTominay. Your two options really are Toby Collier or Christian Eriksen. It doesn't necessarily feel, you don't feel like you've got a player there who's going to necessarily come on and swing the game for you when you're 3-0 down.
Yeah, I think the lack of options is going to be a problem. Also, Lav Agate coming in, boss. We don't know how quickly he's going to be up to speed with, obviously, the rest of the team fitness-wise. But yeah, if you look at the bench today, like that comment just says there, it really is a hollow bench. You look at what any of them players can bring off the bench. You could argue maybe Wheatley may come on, and I thought he's not really played a lot in the first team. But yeah, for me, I think the lack of options is going to be a big concern, especially the amount of games we've got throughout the whole season as well. So we're just game number 3, so we're still very early on, and these issues are happening already. But I think in terms of the midfield, I think that is one of the biggest issues. Obviously, the defence are now trying to play out from the back, and then when you've got a midfield coming asking for the ball and then giving it away almost instantly, automatically the team's already out of position, out of shape. So the fact that they're saying the full-back should have got back, I don't think that would have made much of a difference. They'd have to be like Superman to get back there that quickly, because the ball was given away that quick. And obviously Liverpool are quite good in transitions and turning the play around. So for me, the midfield and the passing for me was what lost us the game today. But yeah, I think for me, Casemiro's a big one. I wasn't surprised to see him taken off. I think it had to happen. But again, the lack of options, you look at it and think, is anyone going to come on and do any better than Casemiro? Probably not. So yeah, it's a tricky one. But for me, the midfield is a big worry. I'm not going to lie.
Does this show how much we need Ugarte? I mean, Ten Hag was interviewed after the game, and obviously somebody's thrown in the question about how's Ugarte going to do when he comes into the team, and he's sort of responded with, I'm not Harry Potter. I'm fairly certain that Harry Potter was never able to tell the future because his divination teacher was going mental at him all the time for it. So I feel like Eric probably needs to go and rewatch Harry Potter if he's going to start throwing out those sort of references, because I'll grin him every time on them. I love Harry Potter. But that aside, because it's not a Harry Potter podcast, what do you think? Because Casemiro is basically having to do a job that it just seems he can't do anymore. He's had a couple of good games. I wasn't against him starting. His first 2 games, I think of him pretty reasonable, pretty good. Talk to me about how this midfield is going to work, because whatever happens, I've already seen people sell him off to Saudi, make it even worse. You've got no other players to bring in. Like, the reactionary nature of some of our fans does make me just want to cry sometimes. And I've actually got about 3 plates less than I had before because we've been launched at the wall, just in pure anger, really, at how absolutely bloody mental some people tend to go. 2 of those are for you, Dan. So keep on grinning, mate. I'm getting to you. Don't you worry. I feel like it's so important. He has NT got Harry Potter mixed up with Mystic Meg. I don't even know that he knows Mystic Meg, but the fact you makes me very pleased indeed. I think, Andy, that it is a problem, isn't it? Is Ugarte going to come in and solve our problems? Because you've got Daz here saying he doesn't even want Ugarte, so obviously he's got like a bat phone for Eric Ten Hag that just rings up, and on deadline day he must have picked it up and said, "No, Daz, I didn't want Ugarte." What's your thoughts?
I mean, I think from what I know about Ugarte and from what I've read and all that, he's a bit more of a destroyer than Casemiro is. He's a bit more of an athlete that's going to break player, that's going to be a bit more of a shield in front of that back 4. I don't think from Ugarte you're going to get the passing that Casemiro attempts to do. I don't think you're going to get the sort of range that he tries to pass. I think he'll be leaving that to other people. But I think it's very obvious teams now see that Casemiro is slow on the ball, sees a bit leggy, and they see him as a massive target. And I think Liverpool did it today. I thought when he was on the ball, you could see whether it's Gravenberch, McAllister, they wanted to get on top of him quick because he's very soft. I don't know whether it was the second goal. He just goes to ground very easily, and not many refs are going to give that. And then you're straight open. And as you mentioned, the fullbacks, we want to play an expansive game. But if he's giving the ball away so openly like that, then we're knackered, really, for lack of a better word, because we got 2-1-4 because Liverpool are going to flood that. Like Matt says, the transition with the Liverpool play is so fast. So for me, if Ugarte can just give us anything but a bit of protection for that back 4, I think it'll be massive. And then pass the ball to Mainu, pass the ball to Bruno, let them do the expansive things that Casemiro attempts to do and he can't do anymore. But I think he's a player that we've missed since. I mean, I can't remember the last time we had a player that was a bit of a destroyer in the middle of the park. He looks like he's a very good athlete as well. He looks like he's very energetic, got a lot of energy, he's a good athlete, he can go up and down. Everything that Casemiro can't do. The one thing I would worry about after the game like today, I think it puts so much pressure on him coming in now, because Casemiro was so poor today. I think it puts so much pressure on him. And that first game against Southampton, if it's Southampton, knowing Ten Hag, it may very well not be. But I think it puts a lot of pressure on him, and I worry for him in that respect. But I think from what I've seen and from what I know about him, I think he's just what we need, and hopefully he kind of sorts that midfield out for us.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was listening to the radio yesterday, I think it was, and it's exactly what they said. He says, when we haven't got the ball, it's war. So he does sound like the type of guy that's going to be flying around, throwing tackles in here, there, and everywhere. Intriguingly, NT says, from what I know, Ugarte, it's not that he would have made that pass Casemiro attempted. It's that he probably wouldn't have even attempted it. Could be a positive or a negative, hopefully the former. So we shall have to see with that. And there's a lot of discussion going on as to whether or not he even wanted Ugarte, but look, you're here in a position where you've got to play with what you've got. And ultimately, I would say that Ugarte is an option that is definitely worth having in the team when you just look at what we've mentioned in the midfield. Is Ugarte going to be better than Eriksen? 100%. Is he going to be better than Collier? At the moment, yes, he is. And that's nothing negative against Collier, but Collier's literally just breaking into the game. And Ugarte has of course, the experience and time served at other clubs. So he's already at a higher level of knowledge within the game. It doesn't mean that Collier hasn't got a role to play. It just means that he's a little bit further on in his journey. Right. Well, I'm not really looking forward to coming to you, Dan. So I don't really know where you're going with all of this today. I'm hoping that you've taken a Valium or whatever it is you need to take and sort your mind out. But I am ready to fight, so we shall see what happens. Midfield for you. Talk to me a little bit about what happened there, because we're right in what we're saying, that we are trying to push forward tactically, and in terms of that midfield, where is it going wrong with those goals? Was it just that Liverpool knew that we were going to try and do that, so therefore they caught us out? And if so, how they managed to catch us out 3 times?
Oh, the annoying part here is my brother sat on this show 2 days ago. Go watch it if you missed it. And he literally said the midfield will be too much for Casemiro if he plays on his own. And then we've proceeded to play him on his own. So how can a fan of Liverpool sit and see the mistake before it's happened, but the manager of a football club can't? I'll say, as much as it's the midfield's fault, you could stick Rodri in our midfield and it would still be terrible, because you can't legislate for the space that's being given. Like, I understand what he's trying to do with the wing backs pushing on and Dalot coming into midfield and this, that, and the other, but it simply does not work. So it's okay that you bring in these players, but the system isn't working. So you have to earn the right to play the kind of football you want to play. It can't just be a given. And that means that sometimes you have to go backwards with the ball, or you have to stick a few behind the ball before the players get comfortable playing the way that he wants to play. These players don't seem comfortable playing that way. It's not working, but we're still playing that way. Everybody in the dog knew that we was going to leave big gaps in midfield, and we did it anyway. And we've done it. This is not just Liverpool today. This is for 2 years that we've done this. Big gaps in midfield, one pass, breaking everybody. I get it's Casemiro's fault for the goals. It was Maguire's fault last week, Martinez last week, Dalot last week. We seem to blame a player, a different player. It was McTominay. He's not good enough for Man United. It's Casemiro. He's not good enough for Man United. It's Maguire. Not good enough for Man United. It's Rashford after this one. It's not good enough for Man United. At what point do we say these players can't do these tactics?
Okay,
this
so
as a unit.
I'm going to bounce this one back to you. Here we go. It started. It's going to be better than Tyson Holyfield. I honestly believe this today. So this isn't what you were saying over the last 3 games. So we played City, we played Fulham, we played Brighton, and in all 3 of those games you said, no, I can see positives. It's going quite well. We actually played quite well. So what's different today? Because you've just cited 2 years. 2 years of football. But actually, the last few games, we both sat there and gone, no, it's not terrible. So yeah, but what is so vitally different today, other than the fact that your brother is absolutely rinsing you through WhatsApp? Apart from that.
Do you know what? He's been good. But we can do this for last season. We can go back and pick 5 games where it worked and the system seemed to click. But when you're going off the balance of probability, when you're watching Man United, you are seeing big gaps in midfield, players being left on their own, people are not following the man. It's, this individual's made a mistake. Me too. It's so basically you can pick performances from the last 3 years that have looked good in this system, but it's not working consecutively every week. There's still weakness. And while, do you know what? The games have been good this season and we've looked better. We've reverted. And now who do you blame? Because it was McTominay. McTominay had to leave. It's his fault that we play poorly and we can't play Ten Hag's brand of football. Then it was Maguire. Well, how did De Ligt fare today? Coming in for Maguire playing Ten Hag's brand of football. He shipped 3. Martinez has been poor. And I've said this a couple of times this season already. Since he came back into the team at the start of this year, he's been poor. He was doing stuff today that just baffled me. He's disappearing into the field. He kicked someone for no reason. I mean, it's amazing because he's a Liverpool player and he got booked, but fantastic. But he's not being fantastic, and it's got to be. So now Martinez is struggling to play this system, and he's not at his best. Is it Martinez as a bad player, or is he just not coming to grips with the system? And if they're not coming to grips with the system, why are we not trying something different?
See, so I am going to come back to you on yours, but I'm not going to do it right this second because otherwise these two boys down here are just going to be the ones that leave, and it's just going to be me and you just throwing lumps out of each other. But suffice it to say, Dan, I've got enough written down for me not to be taking this level of tomfoolery. But Matt Morgan, we'll come back to you just briefly.
Yeah.
He's talking there about the system. Talking about the system, what are you thinking? Because again, likewise, I don't think we've really sat there, certainly not in the last group chats that I've been partaking in. I'm not seeing anything there that's made it sound like the world is ending today because we've lost against Liverpool. Again, to be fair, I haven't really seen you today go a bit mad other than just go, yeah, it's not very good, is it? So where do you sort of stand? Are you seeing a problem with the system? Are you seeing a problem with the way in which we're playing? Or do you think that there is more likely a different explanation to that, such as the fact that we've not had a consistent, proper song out over the last 12 months for us to be able to really have this conversation this early on in the season?
I think it points of view. I don't think you can pin it down to one particular thing. I think it could be a mixture. Obviously, the consistency of the team. Obviously, even now, 3 games in, we've had almost like 3 different lineups. We've not had the consistency. Even the defence, again, we've got players fit, but he's gone from having Maguire in defence with Martinez to now having De Ligt in the team in such a big game as well. So obviously the understanding's not going to be quite there between De Ligt and Martinez. And if you're playing them against Liverpool, and then you've got the midfield in front who can't do what they're being asked to do, then that's going to cause problems. Again, I think I do agree with in a sense of what dancing over the system. I do think the setup isn't working, and I think it is impacting the midfield more than anywhere else in the team. Again, you could argue the players aren't necessarily up to the task of carrying out his tactics, but then surely that's up to the manager to try and adapt it and try and get the best out of them players rather than just sticking to the tactic and hoping for the best that they just automatically switch and it just works. Because it's not, obviously, we all know it's not as straightforward as that. So, yeah, I do agree. I do think something maybe needs to change. We need to do something a little bit different to get the best out of the current players. But midfield, for me, the gaps in midfield is, yeah, you can't even describe it. When you watch it on TV, it's so infuriating to watch because you can just see exactly the same thing every single game. And it was the same last season and the season before. And it's not changed. So, yeah, for me, something needs to be done differently. What that is, obviously, Ten Hag needs to try and figure that out. But, yeah, the midfield and the gaps in midfield for me is a huge concern.
Interesting. Right, I've got to throw this one up here because, as I said, nobody's going to be censored today. If they've got stuff to say, they can say it. Just don't be surprised if I use the exact same legal rights that have been given to me. Eric Ten Hag needs sacked as soon as possible. Everyone said Sancho is the problem, and again, he isn't, even though he's only been gone for 24 hours. And it's the same ice cream as last season. Eric Ten Hag is and always was the problem. We've just spoken there about ways of playing, Beanie. I'll put it to you as well that Jason Wilcox has come in with a very distinct job role that he's been given, and his format has literally been to say, let's work out a way of playing that we're going to put through the club, a culture. So this argument that it's all just Ten Hag, that can't be true, can it? Because surely, if that's the case, Wilcox and Ten Hag have to have had some sort of meeting together where they've decided, along with these other coaches that they brought in, brand new coaching staff as well, all of these people must have sat down to have a conversation about what are the fundamentals. How do we want to play football? We've done it at Stevenage. You know, a new assistant manager come in and the same things happen. We've sat down, how do we want to play football? What are we going to do? What are going to be the basics? What are going to be the fundamentals? How do we want them to play? And then you put these things in, but you can't just change the entire bloody thing in a matter of weeks, especially when the players aren't there. So if you're in that situation, it's madness to be getting this excitable. Ten Hag out after 3 games. It's absolutely... I told people to try not to swear today, so I must try and do the same myself. It's absolutely bloody mental. It's crazy. It's hogwash that we are sat here having a conversation where anybody can turn around and say Ten Hag out after 3 games when we have changed literally everything. The hierarchy above it, we kept on saying you've got to give them a transfer window, and then you've got to give them a chance for that to bed in. And already, that's not the case. These players need to be playing this system. This could be the proper season of transition that we're actually looking for. This is almost like when Arteta took over at Arsenal. It's terrible for a bit. When Klopp took over at Liverpool, it's terrible for a bit. And you're going to get these bad results. But all I've heard for the last 6 weeks is people going, it's been a really good transfer window, actually. We've done incredibly well. We've got rid of the right people. We've brought in the right people. They're in the right positions. They're doing the right things. One result, the world's gone bloody mad. It's almost as if we've woken up and there's zombies walking around and everybody's sitting there going, what's happened here? And then they're just massive overreaction. It's not the case. It can't be the case. Surely, Beanie. Talk to me. It can't be.
I actually think you can see what he's trying to do. And I thought you could see sort of glimmers of it in the first sort of 20, 30 minutes today. I don't think, like, the midfield is an issue. I don't think it's massively helping that anything that's going forward isn't really sticking. Bruno doesn't really look like he started the season off to me at all. Xerxes didn't like the ball pumped into him at all today. It was like it was a hot potato at times. So it's always coming back. But you can see what he's trying to do. And when it's coming back through that midfield, as we know for the past year, it will come through the midfield like a knife through butter because there's nothing really that's stopping it. So I don't necessarily blame the whole midfield, but I can see what he's trying to do. And I think it was very similar today to Brighton and Fulham. I just think today we've got punished by a much better team. And they were all over us in that midfield. They won the midfield, so they won the game today. And that's 100% what it was. Our midfield was all over the shop. Gravenberch looked like prime, I don't know, Busquets or whatever. He looked really good because we were awful. But as soon as they win that midfield, they're on our back four then. And we just panic and we don't really know what we're doing. Like Dan says, Martinez is coming into midfield because he's trying to cover somewhere else because it's all over the shop. And Martinez shouldn't be doing that. But I think it's a little bit of a domino effect. I think what's going on up top, I don't think is great. Like Garnacho is getting the ball, he's just holding it, he's not passing it. Rashford don't really know what to do with it at the minute. His confidence is all over the place, so it's constantly coming back. But I can see what they're trying to do. I wouldn't necessarily say Ten Hag out because you can see something there. But I think a few factors need to improve. The lads going forward need to be much better. The midfield needs to be more solid. But you can see it. You can see it. I think we were just torn apart today by a much better team. And it would have happened against Fulham. It was very, very similar to that Fulham game. Fulham had chances. They're just not as good as Liverpool. Liverpool get a sniff and it's 1-0, it's 2-0, it's 3-0 and they put you to bed. But yeah, I can see a smidge of what he's trying to do. I just think he needs to do it quicker because pressure is on because last season was poor.
Doesn't work that way, though, does it? Just to sit there and go, let's just do it quicker. That's never an option. It's not flipping Football Manager.
No, but I think you need to see. I think you need to see tactically from him. Like when the game's not working, you need to see on the touchline. You don't want to see him with his hands in his pockets. You want to see. Don't take Delict off. Let's shore it up a little bit. Let's protect, not go in sort of 4 or 5. Do you know what I mean? His substitutions were poor again. I think there's just things he does that don't help him. I'm not Ten Hag out by any means, but there's things he does that don't help him. Yeah. So, and I think he does need to be better in that respect.
Okay, still not sure. I completely agree with you, but that's all right. It's fine. Kobe Menu having to do the job of 2, but still the best player in United shirt. He is unbelievable. Even on a booking, getting stuck in, putting the graph today for me, even though he did make a mistake or 2. And you know what? Players are going to make mistakes because this is another thing that frustrates me. This idea that you've got to be a 10 out of 10 every single game. It doesn't happen. You've got to be a 6 or a 7 every week. That's what it needs to be, with the occasional 8, 9, 10 put in and just never drop into a 5. And as long as you're at that, you're fine. This is why Scott McTominay for me was never the problem, because he was always a 6 or a 7, occasionally an 8 or a 9. I don't think I ever saw a 5 out of Scott McTominay. And this is it again. Maguire, man of the match, in my opinion, looked confident and solid, and he absolutely was superb. Let's see what you're saying, me Golden Gamer, 8058. And also, can either of you please try and explain why he took Garnacho off instead of Rashford? Yeah, because, and I'll tell you exactly why. The front line was pants. It was pony. It was ridiculous, and they're just not capable of scoring a goal, because we've said the same thing for the last 3 weeks. Now, I'll let you go on this one, Dan, see what you say. But bear in mind, I am setting a trap for you here. Have you seen an improvement in that performance against Liverpool here today?
In what aspect? Whose?
You just crack on. It's a simple question. Give it an answer.
Man United's in.
Just answer the question. Have you seen
Man United's performance? or like a single player?
From Man United, no, not a single player. You
Um,
can go with a single player if you want, but I'm talking about the team.
It depends on what aspects you rate in the game. We had more possession. We had more shot. We conceded less shots on target. We had more shots on target. We got a decent XG after being 3-0 down. So in certain aspects, then there is a slight improvement. But ultimately, we was battered for 60 minutes by our fierce rivals with ease. Like, anybody thinking Liverpool was out of second gear today are crazy. Liverpool were literally ambling to a 3-0 win. And if they would have turned it up at any point, it could have been 4 or 5, 6. They could have done whatever they wanted to. If they felt ruthless, they could have done whatever they wanted to today because we was that poor. I'll never blame one player. This is my issue. I don't blame one player. It's the unit. So we talk about Kobe Minu there. He made a mistake today and he didn't have a very good game today. But neither did Casemiro. Neither did Martinez. My issue with this team currently is if you make a mistake, your teammate isn't fixing it for you. So Van Dijk would make a mistake and Kanate would come across and fix the issue. You've got Kobe Mainoo losing possession and no one within 20 yards being able to save him, help him out. And it's a shit look for the team in the sense of there's so many times you see a player jog when they should be sprinting full whack. Even if they're not going to get there, you should be sprinting full whack. There was loads of times saw Salah. Liverpool would lose the ball and Salah was then in the right back position. Not even getting there in time. But then if the player wanted to cut inside, he couldn't because Salah had made that 20-yard dash to cut the space. They're not working together as a unit. And I don't know whether it's because they don't understand the tactics or they just can't keep up with the tactics. And this is where my criticism of Ten Hag starts. Casemiro, well, most people could see Casemiro was going to get overrun in midfield by Liverpool. It was obvious. We've watched it for a while under Ten Hag. The midfield tends to get overrun. So why are we not just taking a step back and saying, you know what, before we can for sure play the way I want to play, I'm going to play 3 in midfield that sit, or 2 that sit and 1 just in front. And we'll get the basics right first before we move on and try and play. It's brave, expansive football that he's trying to play, but it's not working. So you can't keep doing it and expect the fans to be like, oh, brilliant. We've been overrun again. And I mean, Gary Neville set himself up because he said something about the midfield. Liverpool midfield shouldn't have dominated our midfield like it did. It really shouldn't have, but it did. And it would. You could play that game 10 times, that would happen 9. And that means there's an issue with the setup and the tactics.
Okay, fair enough. Here's right back. So Benny's also put, by the way, the whole trip for Mbu, that Garnacho sub, I heard it, which I think says it all. Garnacho should have stayed on with Ahmad coming on either for Rashford or Xerxes. And what I'm going to throw at you here is that actually the problem is that we don't have a front line that we can say is going to... We haven't had one for the last 3 games. It doesn't exist. There's nobody there. When Højlund was playing, you at least had somebody to aim towards. It's just not happening. There isn't a target man. There's nobody in the box that you would want to be there. Ahmad's been brilliant driving down the right. He gets into the box, looks up. Who's there? Absolutely nobody. Because where are they? They're trying to come back because they've been too busy trying to do the high press to win the ball back. A lot of what I think Ten Hag is doing is based on the fact that every one of us will sit here and agree we gave away too many shots last season, conceded too many goals, and therefore we ballsed up. This season, I'm not having it. That's exactly what he's done. We have shored up that defence. Manchester City, 9 shots they had against us. Fulham, 10 shots. Brighton, 14 shots. Liverpool today, anyone know how many shots Liverpool had today?
8.
11. 3 on target. Now, if that's the situation, we've already got to a point where defensively we are doing better. We are managing the game to a situation where we are not under constant attack of our goal. That's my first point. I just want to throw out there just how bad it was in these other games. So in the 2-2 draw against Liverpool last season at Old Trafford, 28 shots we conceded. There's 7 of those on target. There's only 3 on target from Liverpool today, and they scored all 3 of them. Cheeky gits. When we won 4-3 in the FA Cup, we still conceded 25 shots, with 11 of those being on target. And when we drew 0-0, boys, God knows how, because they had 34 shots then, of which 8 were on target. And we've narrowed that down to 11. Now, I'm not, don't get this wrong, people that are wanting to clip me up and start calling me all sorts of names, right? I'm not sitting here and saying, my God, wasn't that a brilliant performance? But I'm talking about a progression. And everybody's acting like we've fallen off of a bloody cliff. We haven't fallen off of a cliff. We just haven't had, I think I put it in a tweet, we're just toothless in attack. It's like being bitten by a newborn baby.
But whose fault is it that we're toothless in attack?
Well, the fact we haven't got any players. Look at the players that we've had spearing our attack. There's no Højlund because he's injured. Xerxes isn't that player yet. We can't be expecting a new player to jump in and do it. Who were the main strikers that we've had before that? I'll introduce Exhibit C, shall I? Wout Weghorst. Like, you start looking at the quality of players that we've had who you would put at the sharp end. Before that, Anthony Martial. You might throw him in there, but he's always injured. Then you had Marcus Rashford, who's not a striker, but then you get people trying to tell you he's not a left winger either. It's just a drama, but there wasn't any available. And we're not going to get an absolutely red-hot, fantastic striker right at the very, very top. So you've got to sit there and take a moment and just say to yourself, this is where we are now. Until we get ourselves that forward bit sorted. If you're a manager, Matt, you're a manager, you go into a football team that's just leaking, like it's leakier than Old Trafford. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
First thing you're going to do is what?
Reshore up the defence.
Right, the defence. And then you can start thinking about how we get going forward. And you can see what that's trying to do. They're trying to play from the back. And we said this in the game against Brighton. They're getting there. This whole thing of we can't play out from the back, it's ridiculous, we're terrible, it's absolutely awful. We've actually seen some beautiful play out of defence, trying to work through the thirds and get the ball into a position where we can create chances, which we've done. And we created 3 today. I saw somebody today say we can't look at the stats over 90 minutes. If you stretch it out over the 90 minutes, it's superb. But for the first 60, Liverpool, well, the game is 90 minutes long, love. I'm sorry. That's how long it goes on for. So you will have to take the stats and put them out over the whole 90. That's how a game of football works.
Mm-hmm.
So surely, Matt, we've got to sit here and actually have a proper adult conversation about this, where we go, no, the result isn't good enough. No, we don't want to be losing to Liverpool. And no, we don't want to be, as somebody's just putting here, 3 goals down already in goal difference, even though it's only in 3 games. But we have to sit there and say that with what we've got and the way we're going, there is forward progress. We can't just be sitting here as a fan base and be so, what's the word I'm trying to look at for it? I don't know, like Chelsea or Arsenal or Liverpool fans, where they just go mental after something goes wrong. I mean, Arsenal were the worst ones. Every time they used to win, Wenger's the best manager in the world ever. And the minute they lost a game, Wenger out. And I can't stand this level of just flip-flopping. I mean, I know Dan's made a career out of it so far on this channel, but surely not. Come on, Matt. Let's have a bit of positivity. There's definitely stuff here that's better. Possession. This time, 53% of the ball we had. We've not had that amount of possession in the last 3 games we played against them. The 2-all game, only 38%. The 4-3 one, 41%. And the 0-0 one, we only had 31% of the ball. But it's better. We made 492 passes in this one, which was an 82% pass accuracy. Obviously, the other 18% is where we kept giving the ball away for them to attack. But 76, 75, 71%. So it's the first time in the last year that we've had a plus 80% passing accuracy. Liverpool, for the last 4 games, have had 84% pass accuracy all of the time. So there's positive. There has to be positives, Matt, surely, when you're looking at that. Ten Hag didn't want to talk about them, but we can because we're not fighting for our jobs. So talk to me about them. Yeah,
I think you've mentioned a lot of the key ones. I think the main one is the speed of the play. Last season, a lot of it was obviously we had injuries last season. Bear that in mind as well. Obviously, the team is softening and changing quite a lot. I think the speed of the play and also the way they're trying to play out from the back now they do look a bit more comfortable doing it. But again, last season, they didn't really have the players in the defensive line that were comfortable receiving the ball and then playing the ball into midfield. Whereas now I feel like they do have them players that can do that. But again, obviously the issue comes back to the midfield where you're sort of limited because of the options they've got ahead of them, who they're giving the ball to, and then what they do with the ball following the pass from a defender, for example. So that's one encouragement. And like you say, the defense side of things, the fact they're limiting shots, obviously you look at the result and go, yeah, there's no improvement. It's really, really poor, which again, it all comes down to results at the end of the day. But if you look at the performance, you do see the improvement, especially in terms of like possession. They do seem to keep the ball a lot better, apart from moments where they do have moments of error where they just give the ball away like today. But yeah, general play, I am a lot more encouraged. And in fairness, games like against Fulham, we had more than enough chances to bury that game. It should have been a lot more than 1-0. Against Brighton, obviously we got a bit unlucky with the Garnacho goal. We would have been 2-0 up. Obviously the game flipped on its head. So yeah, there is signs there. Like I say, things gone in our favour in the first two in the Brighton game. We'll have been on probably 6 points going into this game, whereas we came into the game on 3. And obviously it's another defeat. So obviously there's going to be plenty of negativity because we're probably like 15th in the league now. So yeah, the signs are there in terms of the general play. They just need to try and turn them into results now and start getting some goals in the game, because that's severely lacking at the moment, which is quite worrying.
Absolutely. Okay. Daz, to be fair, Salah also said that, he's leaving Liverpool at the end of the season, and I don't see that happening either. So I wouldn't really pay much attention to what he's got to say. You can have 100% of the ball if you do nothing with it, or overrun possession becomes useless. If you can't do it. To be fair, if you have 100% of the ball, then it's physically impossible, surely, for anyone to score unless you score an own goal. So just I'll throw that one out there. But that's the sort of mood I'm in. I'm sorry. Down. Probably riled me up. He really has. Beanie. Same thing, but this time I want to talk a little bit about the team. There are only 2 players that have played those 4 games against Liverpool. Do you know who they are?
Bruno and Dallo?
No. I mean, I would have expected you to get one, to be fair, because he played literally every game he's been available for. Including ones where he wasn't available for them due to the fact that we pulled him back from the Cup of Nations. And Anna, of course, played all 4, as has Kobbie Mainoo. He has also played in all 4 of those games. Every other position has got to change. Now, to be fair, Garnacho's played, I think, 3 of them, but switched wings in where they were. The Garnacho position on the right, it's been him and Anthony mainly who's played there. Xerxes and Højlund, Rashford and Garnacho again. McTominay played where Fernandes was for a game. You've also got the Casemiro spot was Amrabat and McTominay. In defence, we've had a defence change every single time. Martinez was there, but you're also talking about Varane and Maguire playing there. And in the De Ligt position, Evans, Lindelof and Willy Camboala. So this is the first time we've actually had a sort of a settled defence, and then we go and make a change again as well. So when you start looking at all of this and we start talking about, this is how many games into the season we are and he's 3 years in, I just don't think you can count last season in terms of trying to get a cohesive game plan that you actually play, because it was ridiculous the amount of players that kept coming in and out. How are they individually supposed to learn it? You can say it and teach it and talk it to these people. When you're Mason Mount and you're missing out on games all the time, Tyrell Malacia, I don't know where he is. Like, I've actually hit a point now where I feel like we need to put him on crime watch, because I don't know if he actually still exists. He may have been abducted by aliens. And I think it's really important that we find out where he is, because he's going to have no clue. That can be the only reason why he's not playing, is that he just doesn't understand what is being said, because he's got no idea and he's not been at any of the team meetings. But all of these changes that we're having, because of injury, surely they can't be expected to be at this level just yet. This is effectively a new start, surely. And therefore, we've got to look at it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, a consistent team, a consistent back line. it was his big issue, wasn't it, last season? Injuries, constantly playing different back lines. I mean, the number of back lines we played last season was ridiculous. I can't remember how many it was. It was like 20 different back lines or something. So, it is a factor. It really is. But I'm like that with it. I just want to see. I want to see more of what he's trying to do. We obviously can see what he's trying to do. We can see he's trying to stop us being. We can see he's stop us trying to take in all these shots. But like one of the comments says, there has to be something going the other way. Otherwise, most teams are going to do us in this league. Otherwise, there has to be something. I mean, today Liverpool only had 8 shots. We gave them flipping 3 of them. Do you know what I mean?
It's fine. That's what I said. It's all right.
There has to be something going the other way for me. But yeah, I ain't saying the season's terrible. I want to see a little bit more. Be interesting when Højlund comes back. If he carries on doing what he's doing with the sort of attacking third, it'd be interesting like that. But I think we saw the last maybe 30 minutes of the game today. When we saw that the game was gone, it looked like we were playing Xerxes more sort of centrally, more as the number 9 sort of thing, and we were causing them a lot more problems. Like Ahmad had someone in the box, like you say. There's normally no one. We had someone in there, and we were putting good balls in, and he probably should have scored a couple of goals. It just feels at the minute what the thing he's trying to do, as much as it's stopping us chipping all these shots, is blunting us so badly going forward. And we're kind of feeding on scraps a little bit, which I think we was with Brighton. I think we played some very good stuff against Brighton, but we were just feeding on scraps. But it is very overreactionary. The result, it's against Liverpool, so it is very reactionary.
I know for a fact he was going to say bin dippers then and change his mind.
We'll see what happens against Southampton.
You see, Beanie really values being on this channel, and I love it. I really do. People are going to start thinking there's a party line being put here. Exactly this. We gave them 3 through howlers. I mean, Daz said it looked easy. I don't think it did. I mean, I can't talk to you properly about the first 55 minutes because I haven't watched every single one of them. But I've seen the goals. The goals looked easy, absolutely, because they were. It was effectively 4 against 2, 4 against 3 for each one. You would expect a team of Liverpool's quality to be able to do that. But my point is, Dan, that this would have been 7-0 if we were last season. If we put that performance in last season, it could have been 7-0. Now, that would be my point to you, is if it's 7-0 only 2 seasons ago, why wasn't it 7-0 this time? People are making it sound as if Liverpool basically took their foot off the gas and said, oh, don't worry about it, 3 is fine. We know fine well that if Liverpool want to try and crush us underfoot, then they're going to go ahead and do that. They're not sitting there going, oh, we feel sorry for them, the poor little Manchester United players. It's not how it works. If they've got the opportunity to go and batter us, they will, but they didn't. So why wasn't it 7? It's only 3.
It could have been 7. So
it could have been 25. We could have scored 2. I mean,
this is my issue. This is my issue with it. So they did take the foot off the gas. So as soon as that 3rd goal goes in, you can. So I don't want to go too much into stats because I feel like it gets lost in translation. But
I can't just point out he doesn't want to go into stats because he knows on this occasion the stats will absolutely shoot his argument.
They definitely won't. So there's
you
get a territory map from the stats, and you can literally see the swing in the territory map after we score the 3rd goal. After they score the 3rd goal, we start creating chances. Before that, there's none. There's no chances created. Well, there's a few peaks in it, but not many. We didn't play well. I can literally remember a 3-0 Szoboszlai should shoot. He could pass it into an empty net, and he messes about. Otherwise, that's 4-0. And then there's another one where I think Jota's in, and if he just peels away from his man and the ball's come back to him, it's 5. Liverpool could have put us to the sword. The argument I'm going to say here is Liverpool have got a new manager that's came in and changed the entire way they play football. They don't play the football the same as what they was playing under Klopp. They're joint top of the league, and they've won every game without conceding a goal, and they've just beat the first rivals at a canter, and he's only 3 games into his reign, and it looks absolutely effortless. I'm not going to blame Ten Hag because in that aspect, because there's loads going in the background of United that Arne Slot will not have to deal with. Liverpool are
so we're not going to put into this game then the fact that that last half hour, obviously, is when we did the swap and brought Ahmad on. And all of a sudden we started to look like we were trying to get forward. We put Harry Maguire in the defence, and all of a sudden people weren't necessarily getting past us as easy as possible. So we don't want to sit there and put any praise or positivity into those.
It's not about praise and
positivity. We're just going to sit there and go, they could have lost 7-0, but they didn't because Liverpool took their foot off our neck.
So are we blaming Garnacho? Are we blaming Garnacho and Dillit then?
It's not about blame. It's about change.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's not about blame. It is about change. That's what I mean.
Well, when you change it, you give it a fresh impetus. So it wasn't working. This is what everybody keeps saying. What's not working?
3-0 down.
I've heard Beanie say earlier on, oh, they're all pre-planned. And they might well be pre-planned. And that's not a problem. But it doesn't mean that when you make the change and then all of a sudden it changes the game.
No, but that is a massive problem. That is a massive. If the substitutions at Man United are pre-planned, that's a huge problem. If you're only bringing on Maguire for Delete at 70 minutes because it's planned and you're not going off what the game's gone like or how the players are performing, that's a huge red flag. You can't just be going, it's 65 minutes, we'll take Garnacho off and bring Ahmad on just because that's the planned change. That should have been Garnacho to the left, Rashford off. He's got to do stuff in game.
Do you think Casemiro at half-time was a pre-planned substitution then, Dan?
I personally agree with what Gary Neville said with that. I don't think he was subbed because of giving the ball away twice. I think he was subbed because if you watched his demeanour for the last 5 minutes of that half, he was gone. He couldn't have come back out for the second half anyway.
Gary Neville, but he did give the ball away twice. And if you listen to Ten Hag, he did say it was tactical. Of course it was going to be tactical because he didn't have a good game.
No, but his head was completely gone.
He just got the legs.
Yeah, well, Casemiro's head was gone at the end of that half. Honestly, it's like he knew. Like Gary Neville referred to his West Brom game where he played against West Brom and he was hooked at half time because he had an absolute horror show in the first half. And it's like he knew in himself that he really messed up the game and he just wasn't gonna finish it. It's just that's the issue for me. We saw more from Liverpool this season in 3 games under a new manager, and it's not like having to watch Liverpool play and
sake. But we're talking about a team that have been finishing in the top 3 perennially for the last 6 years. We've just finished 8th and somehow managed to win.
was in charge when we finished 8th.
That's a bit like going, well, I don't know, Fulham are just absolutely pants. They've just changed their manager. I mean, I know they haven't, but if they had, you'd be sitting there going, but 3 games in, we haven't won any games yet, but Liverpool have. It's not the same thing. You're comparing apples and oranges again. Liverpool, under Klopp, have been left in a bloody fantastic situation. It's a dream taking that job on. Manchester United haven't been left in a good position. Well, not even since Fergie left, because when Fergie left, we were still in the bargain basement, and somehow he managed to pull a league title out of those players. So this is the problem. We are comparing our football team against other teams that are not in the same situation as us. They're just not, Dan.
Aston Villa?
So sitting there and talk about his slot and his 3 games, and we are changing an entire system, an entire strategy, and above all of that, a culture, Dan. And that doesn't happen in 3 games.
Okay, but he's had 3 years. It's his 3rd season. Emre's changed Aston Villa.
Last season,
Eddie Howe's changed Newcastle.
Last season, you agreed with us that those injuries meant you couldn't really get going. And this is that only works over the course of a general season. And if you just had the average amount of injuries, that's fine. But last year, we were searching for play. We're bringing youngsters in. You can't claim a reset at that point. And again, I'm not having this as well. 700 million. I don't give a monkeys how much money you spent out. I mean, 80 million of that was for Anthony, which, to be honest, is just starting to feel like a charitable donation at this point. So I think
But who wanted to sign Anthony?
Yeah, that's Ten Hag, and I'm not putting him blame this. But what I'm trying to tell you is now we said this. It's a new start. It's a new dawn. Ineos have come in. It's a new strategy with the way in which we're purchasing players and the way in which we're doing things. And I just find it absolutely bloody laughable that there are fans sitting here after 3 games questioning where we are. After 3 games, 270 minutes of football, that is absolute bloody madness.
But it's not 3 games, though, is it? It is.
That's what a new start stands for. A new start equals a new beginning. It means you've got to forget about everything that's happened before and you start from new.
But you can't have that as a coach. That's crazy. That means if you get to the end of the season, you can just say it's a brand new start. Like, ignore the 2 years previous. So Ten Hag's not won a trophy with us.
It's not like we changed our entire backroom staff, got in a brand new CEO, changed the director of football, that sort of stuff. We didn't do none of that. Changed loads of players, get rid of loads of bad eggs. You're absolutely right. That was a perfectly normal year.
It's not a normal year.
My bad, I've mucked up.
What I'm saying is we looked at the stat earlier. We was discussing it in the group chat. In the last 17 games, he's only won 6.
But that's 14 other games that are before the new start.
But the form of the football club.
You go, we're going to have a peace, what do you call it, a ceasefire.
Yeah.
And then one of them goes, well, I ain't doing that because they shot me mate a year ago. That's not how it works. You've got to stop and go, we're only looking at the future. Now, if we're still in this situation in December, I'll be with you. I will join you on the picket lines. But 3 games, boys.
I'm not on the picket lines yet because we only lost 3-0, not 4 or 5.
Not on the picket line, so I need to make the WhatsApp group public.
I said if it finishes 4 or 5, I'll be on the picket lines.
Right. So for the sake of
it's not good enough, is what I'm saying. So I get that there's a lot of change in the background. I get that there's a lot of issues at the club. I get that this, that, and the other. But we were talking about the front line earlier. He signed Anthony. He signed Hoyland. He signed Xerxes. He's got the forwards he wants. He's got the defenders he wants. He's got an hour midfielder that he wanted but didn't want. I don't know whether it's a badly run club decision, but it sounded like he wanted McTominay but couldn't keep him. So that's harsh, and that's where I feel sorry for him. But we can't ignore the football last season because the football's similar this season. It's got better in the sense of, yes, we're conceding less shots, yes, we're doing this, but it's still the same because there's still massive gaps in midfield. There's still issues with players. So we've got Dallo playing at left back still. That's not a left back. So why wasn't a left back signed? That's a club issue, but it's also a Ten Hag issue. And then striker, we're talking about Xerxes wasn't playing very well. Why not just put on the Wheatley lad, stick him up front? He's a number 9, if that's what we think the problem is. Because if we're going to lose, we're going to lose anyway.
This is where it goes wrong every time, Dan. I'm going to ask you this, Matt, because again, otherwise it just becomes 2 people on the show. But this is mental, isn't it? Because it's this whole revisionism of if we did this, this would happen. As if we know. Like we just said, we might as well put on Ethan Wheatley. Well, there's just as much chance that Ethan Wheatley comes on and scores a hat-trick as there is that Ethan Wheatley comes in and has his career completely ruined because he doesn't make the grade and everybody just looks at him and says he's not ready to play football for Manchester United. It's too easy to turn around and look at what we could have done, especially when we're talking about players that are unknown and untested at this level. So do you think this is unfair, the fact that we've got people like Scott saying here, Man United just don't have a plan? Because I can't see it. I think we do have a plan, and I can see that we are trying to make those steps. We're not going to do that in 3 weeks. And it is only 3 weeks because pre-season was an absolute bloody waste of time. It's not the same patterns, Connor. And it just goes to show. You get back over to the women's team and sit yourself over there. I'm not convinced you've been watching this, Condog. I'm convinced today, I'll tell you. I've never felt like this on here before. But Matt, it's not, is it? It's not a plan. It is a plan, and it's just not going to happen immediately, surely.
I think it is going to take a bit of time, obviously, for them to. Obviously, if you're going to judge it after 10 league games, for example, or say a halfway point or Christmas, for example, say that, then you look at it and go, are they still playing like they are now, and they've still got the same issues? Do they go back to obviously conceding goals? Are they still struggling to score? Then I suppose you could maybe judge it a bit more. Maybe when you get further into the season, if they do continue playing that way. I think after 3 games it is quite harsh. But I think a lot of it comes down to us. We've just played Liverpool. Every time we play one of the top clubs, there's always an overreaction, and that's just natural from the fans because everyone's obviously gutted that we've lost the game. But I think if you look at the bigger picture, personally, I can see what they're trying to do. Obviously, whether that'll come to fruition over the longer term, that remains to be seen. But they do need to continue and progress. And hopefully, once the new players have had more game time, obviously Garte comes in and they all start integrating properly. Hopefully, we do start seeing green shoots, and hopefully they can kick on. But yeah, like I say, there is good and bad points. Obviously, there is still things there they do need to work on. But for me, I do see signs of encouragement moving forward. But I think we need to judge it over a slightly longer period of time in this current season to see if they're in any sort of progression to what we're trying to implement personally.
Exactly this, JJ. I couldn't agree more. How much Liverpool spend under Klopp? It's just little, about 10 million, I think. Slots at least been able to inherit a cohesive Liverpool team and structure. This is my point precisely. Beanie, where are you going on with all this, with the whole chat about Ten Hag? Because I mean, I was absolutely gobsmacked when I read it in the group chat. I really was, and it takes something to be messaged back by me with "This is the most stupid thing I've read all day." I didn't expect it, to be honest with you, in a group chat that we possess, and words will be had after the show. That's for certain. I'm not having this level of just disgusting. Honestly, I thought I'd accidentally gone onto a different podcast for a moment. But Beanie, what do you make of it? Are you with these two? Do you think that we really do need to take Ten Hag's performance as a whole? Because if we're doing that, first season, pretty good. Second season, injuries, not so great. Like I just don't think too many people have forgotten that he actually did have quite a good first season, and we actually did quite well. And we were all sitting there thinking we're going to move on, press on, and progress from that. We just didn't, and because of that, all everybody can think about is that horrible injury-laden season.
Yeah, the issue with me is that it is his third season. The first season was good, and we went backwards last season. Fair enough. Like there was a lot of injuries. I mean, he has spent a lot of money bringing in the players that he wanted. Has Anthony played this season? I don't know. I think that's on Ten Hag. That however much you have to move on, and you have to kind of, like you say, you have to sort of put a line in the sand, and you say this is a fresh start. I don't think you can forget last season. I think the FA Cup massively kind of overshadowed how bad the season was. I mean, I'm not sure how far you can go back last season to a point where we played well, because I don't think we did. And I think in a lot of fans' heads, it's just a continuation of what's happening. I think if we lose to Southampton and Palace, I think he might be in a bit of trouble. I wouldn't want him to get sacked this early, and I think it would make Ineos look a bit weak. The fact that they've gave him a new contract, and then after sort of half a dozen games, they're like, all right, this ain't working. Let's jog on now. But I think if we lose to Southampton and we lose to Palace at home, I mean, what was Palace at home? Palace away last season, 4-0, 3-0, 4-0. It could get bad for him. But Southampton away next, people are saying that's an easy 3 points. That'll be Southampton's. That's like Southampton's cup final having United come to St Mary's. Do you know what I mean? They will be buzzing for that game. And if we play like we played today, if we play as open as we played today in the midfield, they'll do us, because we don't have enough going forward, in my opinion. Palace was 4-0. Palace will do us. And I think as much as we are trying to plug that gap, it has to make us more of a threat, because I don't think there's any easy games in this league. And I think if we leave it 10 games, where are United going to be? Sort of 12th, 13th? I think you can leave it a bit too long. Although I do think we need to give him a little bit of time, as you say, to try and work out what he's doing. I think it needs to be clicking a lot quicker, and he needs to make us just have a bit more of an end product.
I can point out again, it's never going to happen overnight, and there are people here that are just sort of saying, well, if we just get rid of the manager, bring in a new one, as if that's some sort of magic wand, and all of a sudden that's Harry Potter again, as if that means that all of a sudden everything will be sorted and fixed. And we've done that. We've done that time and time again. People thought David Moyes wasn't good enough. A year into a 7-year contract, we got rid of him. Oh, we'll do better. We didn't. We had Van Gaal, we had Mourinho. Oh, don't worry, we're going to do better, even though they actually won stuff as well. It was just diabolical football. Nobody likes watching it. So therefore, we get rid of them, bring in some new people. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer gets brought in, brings in the field.
I don't think it.
Oh, we better change him because we lost a couple of games. Patrice Evra on a league of their own, standing up for him, not being a rubbish manager, to Micah Richards and Romash Ranganathan, absolutely superb again. pointing out the fact that actually Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was an incredibly good manager, probably the best manager that we've had post Sir Alex, but everybody just wanted him away because he's not a name. This is half the problem. Everybody's saying now let's get rid of Ten Hag. We're forgetting the facts. This is the man that we all said, let's bring in Ten Hag. Now we brought in Ten Hag. Everybody's turning around on him, stabbing him straight in the back immediately. But who? Who is going to come in to Manchester United? Who is this guru that is all of a sudden going to walk into our football team and make a difference? Because I'll tell you something, lads, just from a little bit of experience, Alex Ferguson was brilliant. Yep, he won stuff at Aberdeen, but you're going to sit there and start saying Aberdeen are, a top-notch club that have won lots of stuff. It's no different to Ajax in that respect. Ajax winning the things that they won. So when you're going to start sitting there and talking about managers that have got pedigree, Ten Hag's nowhere near as bad in terms of that pedigree as some people are making out. And I just think we're being a little bit disrespectful to him. Dan, who's it going to be? You're sitting there saying that we might potentially need to replace the manager. Who the bloody hell is going to come in here and change this around, especially with a fan base that's going to give you about 5 seconds to breathe before expecting you to be out?
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. All day, every day, I'd have him back tomorrow. If that was the choice, I'd have him back tomorrow. The reason why I've started this one is because that Palace team that beat us 4-0 and looked so good, that was under a new manager. So managers can make a difference quickly. I get that it's a different standard at Manchester United. And again, I'd love nothing more than Ten Hag to go into the Southampton game with a completely different outlook. So he's put 3 at the back. He's put an extra midfielder in. It's like maybe he even goes with Casemiro and Ugarte with Meno in front. And we see Fernandes maybe play as a false number 10 or something daft like that, but a different system. This is my issue with Ten Hag. He's predictable. He's been predictable all last season. He's predictable now. We've got people predicting how the games are going to go before they've even gone. We can predict the lineup, even though that he can make changes. Most get it right still. You can't be predictable as a manager like that unless your team is that good. It doesn't matter if you're predictable because you're just going to get blown away by him anyway, which is where Man City's at, which is where Arsenal are at, which is why Slot's got it easier at Liverpool. Because I can remember when we did our predictions on the show, I was really shocked that a lot of you had Liverpool as 6th because the team on paper is really, really good. So Slot shouldn't have an issue because they're all professionals. Like, my issue is how many more times are we going to say that Manchester United players are the issue? It's got to be a point where it's not the players anymore because we've got rid of that many, that it's maybe the setup or the team as a unit, little things just not fighting for each other, not going together. Like, I'm confused with the tactics. I get we're saying that they are slightly different this season, but we're still seeing a high press and a low line. And that's what causes the massive gap in midfield. They're not pressing together, but they're not defending together. So we're just getting caught out. Benny's spot on. It's the hardest job in world football because it's the biggest club in world football. So we're going to struggle. And again, I'll flip-flop all season. I'll joke about it, but I definitely will. I'll be out, I'll be in, I'll be left, I'll be right. It's just what's going to happen all season because I can be very reactionary. I calm down a little bit in the end. Ultimately, I would love Ten Hag to work out. My question is he going to change what he's doing or are we going to see the same patterns? Because if we see the same patterns again this season, it's going to end badly. So he's got to do something different. He can't just keep doing it the same and expect people to go, well, yeah, we looked a bit better, but we still lost 3 of the last 4 games. I know we was unlucky against City and we was unlucky against Brighton. But we said at the show at the start of the season, if he loses and don't start well, there's going to be pressure on him because of Van Nistelrooy coming into his backroom staff, etc. I hope he proves me wrong and we see something different from him. But
just give me an answer. Who's coming in? This is it. You see, nobody can do it. It's not going to happen.
I think it'll be Tuchel.
And tell me a manager who is genuinely going to leave a job that you think is guaranteed to bring us.
Yeah, no, I agree. I 100% agree. I don't think there is a standout manager
and even
for
if
it.
Bring in a fantastic standout manager, Matt. Where do you think we're going to finish this season with that person in?
Probably similar to where we'd be with Ten Hag was here.
This is my point.
Hey, whoa. I've got a retort now on this then. Because where did you have Man United to finish, Barry?
At second.
Where did you
Winning
have
it,
Man
wasn't it?
United to finish, Barry? Matt?
Second.
Me, third.
He's already said that.
What about you, Barry? Beanie?
Stop asking me 3 times.
Fourth, maybe.
Fourth? So the expectation was second, third, and fourth. The realistic expectation I had as sixth. So if we finished sixth and we had a cup run, I'd still be happy as long as this progression. But it's got to come at some point. We can't just keep doing the same things.
I would assume that Rude is there for a reason, JJ, and that reason is to get the bloody team scoring. Like we had Benny McCarthy in the nicest possible way. Benny McCarthy, I think he played for Sheffield Wednesday. So he shouldn't be sitting there trying to tell anyone at Manchester United how to finish a bloody goal because he's not up there. Ruud van Nistelrooy, quite simply, the best finisher of a ball I think I've ever witnessed. It's not Southgate. You're outrageous. Simon, me and you are going to fall out at some point, and I'm going to point this out to you in a minute where that's happening. There is indeed 2 weeks until the next game because of internationals. You're quite right. That's good news. The history of the club is so unique and prestigious that it also weighs heavy on both managers and players. To be in the shadows of the greats of the game, especially within the shadows of Sir Matt and Siraj, it does. But where it also weighs heavy is on the, and I'm sorry to say it, particularly the newer fans, because the newer fans are not used to Manchester United losing. So as a result, they just believe we've got this God-given right to consistently finish, top and brilliant and wonderful. And they forget the fact that actually we were superb. I'm not going to put that up, Simon. That's really disrespectful. And I don't like it, if I'm honest with you, because I don't think it's as bad as we are potentially making that out to be. Internationals in the first 10 games should be banned. I mean, I'd just get rid of internationals altogether, to be honest with you. They're absolutely bloody terrible. Hate them. And exactly this, we wait for it to come in, and then all of a sudden it's straight back in to those. I'm going to look at some of the ones that we starred today, because Twillenber had mentioned earlier on about Slot being here for months and got them playing the way he wants. This is a good one as well. Matt, just give us a quick shout about Collier. Buck said he thought Collier looked composed in the circumstances. People saying he was thrown under the bus. I don't necessarily agree. I think Collier came on and showed that, if you can perform against Liverpool, then you can perform against anybody, really. Would you not think so on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I say, at least put him on today in the way he came on and looked composed. At least it shows he has got another option he can play in other games. Also, like this, if you've got Southampton next, if he wants to mix it up a little bit, if Ugarte is not quite ready or he doesn't want to play Casemiro, at least you've got Collier there who can come in, who can do a job. And obviously, he's come through the academy, so he will put 100% in, regardless of who they're playing and how they're playing. So yeah, for me, I thought it looked really good considering the circumstances.
No, absolutely. think I agree on that one. Andy, Box also said Maguire looked strong and alert when he came on. I know that you've already spoken about the starting lineup, but there was an argument, wasn't there, for keeping Maguire in there?
Yeah, I think Maguire's a very good defender. I don't have one issue with Maguire. He always does his job well. I think he's just massively scapegoated any by massive sections of the fan base, but I have no issue with Maguire. I think we got exactly what we know we're going to get from Maguire when he come on, and he's always solid.
Absolutely. And Dan, just over here on this one, missed Mason Mount with the press from the front today also. We had Xerxes. This has been the big thing, hasn't it? We have had some incredibly good pressing going on. Would you say that again, I didn't see the first 60, so I can't really talk too much about that, but the press, was it missing a lot from that with Xerxes in there at the front?
Yeah, we said it on the previous shows. That 4-2-2-2 that he'd been playing with Mount and Fernandes was working. I think that was one of the reasons why we kept the shots down. They was working together. Mount was pressing when Fernandes was pressing. So yeah, I think that's spot on from Benny. Mason Mount was a big miss. But can Man United go forward playing a 4-2-2-2 with two midfielders pressing? I don't think we can. But again, if that's how you've got to start the building blocks, and then you can move away from that when the players get a bit more confident, so be it. But I do think we miss Mount. Maybe we finally found the position where he's going to be good at.
Good. Nice to hear Dan is finally starting to come back around to the right way of thinking. Well done. We've got through it. Box also said the Warriors losing 0-3 to Liverpool when Brentford and Ipswich only lost 2-0. It's not as simple as that being away. It's telling. I mean, to be fair, you give the ball away like we did, you're going to get punished by the bigger teams, and that's the difference. It wasn't anything else. He did speak about some of the strikers. I mean, Ronaldo was all right. I'll give you that. We're not talking about the other one because he doesn't count. Sancho, crap. Martial, crap. Lukaku, crap. Igalo, crap. Ibrahimovic, too old. Falcao, OAP. So just going to throw that one out there. The prime ones of all of those, and we can talk. What's happening in the
It's
chat?
one of my favourite ones.
Just wanted to throw this one out there for you to remember. Connor, as you very well know, is in charge of the women's channel. He's in charge of this one as well, to be fair. But, he's barely here. So, it's tough to buy us. So, basically what I was saying to him was to just get back in his box. Was where we were going there. NC suggesting a Welsh wizard. I don't think Clayton Blackmore would want the job, if I'm honest with you. Well, Brighton are third, so I presume that they're going to win the league, lads, based on this. We're 14th nearly. We're 3 games into a 38-game season. And I just think we all need to...
If we were still fighting, Barry, I would say, I'm Brighton just had a new manager, but I'm not going to.
Well, in that case, I would just say, well, Liverpool are doing as well as they're doing, not because they've understood Arnie Slot's stuff, but it's the new manager bounce.
Fair play.
Okay, then for him. What's good for the goose, good for the gander. So there we are. Listen, there's loads of it. We could probably go on forever, but I've got a headache now, and I've just about had it for one day. That is for sure. For Dan James, yeah, okay. I thought he went for manager, and I thought we were going down the Ryan Giggs route. But there we go. Dan James, listen, he was all right, but would he definitely be somebody who would make a major difference? I'm not convinced. Listen, all opinions are welcome on this show. If you've sat there today and you're thinking to yourself, God, that Barry's an absolute git. He just had a go at anything I've got to say. Well, that's what happens when you put an opinion out there. You'll be pleased and happy to realise I've done the same thing. I put my opinion out there, and it appears that a lot of people don't always agree with that, and that is absolutely right and fine. The most important thing that we must remember at all times is that we are Manchester United fans first and foremost, and that is what keeps us all together. That's why we are Manchester United and not Manchester City. So that's where we are. Matt, it's been lovely to have you on again, mate. Where could people find you? Not physically, but on the
internet. Yeah, so
probably not a good idea to do this out today. Might be some nutters in there that want to try and find this.
Yeah, so it's a handle just below me, just to the left of me. But yeah, mainly everyone follow All for United on Twitter. That's the main one that I'm working at the moment. So yeah, everyone go and drop that a follow. I think we're not far off 1.2k now. So
just to say, I think we're nearly at 1200, aren't we?
Yeah. So if you're not, feel free to drop a follow. It'd be great.
Good stuff indeed. Beanie's just looking down now to try and see what it is that he's written on his wrist. But which one am I going to say? Is it going to be Twitter? Is it going to be TikTok? What's your Twitter handle, Beanie?
Andy Bean 84.
Well done.
That's Andy Bean 84. MUFC Beanie 7 is the TikTok one. I'm nearly at 4,000 as well. So if anyone has TikTok, give me a follow on TikTok. I'm nearly at 4,000.
Absolutely, please do. And the All for United TikTok is coming along quite nicely. We are, last time I checked, 15 away from the 800.
14 away.
14
13.
now. Another one coming. Thank you very much.
There's 18 people in this room right now. So if those 18 people go to TikTok and sign up for it, we can do lives.
Amazing. In which case, you get to see sensible people like myself talking to you after a football match.
I may be banned.
Down. But if that's not what you want, don't unsubscribe. I can put other people on there if they must. That'll be fine. And Dan, whereabouts can people find your inane post-match and during-match ramblings?
Just on here at night time. You don't want to follow me on Twitter because they're just so all over the place. And then I calm down, so it's fine after that.
I knew he would calm down, yeah, but it's usually the next day that he's calmed down fully and is a bit more sensible. So I was a little bit concerned as to what level we were going to get from Dan today. But he's not been as bad. He's probably going to be allowed back next week now, I would think. I'm not even going to get into that. You guys enjoy yourself. That's absolutely fine. Just have your opinions. It's great. What a time to be alive. Boys, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you all here. Do you know, I think the last time that Orf United got 1,000 views on a video was just after the Manchester United 7-0 loss to Liverpool. I think that was the last time we had 1,000. We're very intrigued to see where this one goes to. Obviously, Ollie was sacked after that one, so there was presumably a little bit more interest in what was going on, but we'll really be looking forward to it. And Simon, let's finish on a positive, shall we? Because everybody's having a go at us for losing in injury time to Brighton. But again, that's the Brighton that's third and the Brighton that drew with, I don't know, Premier League elect Arsenal. So this is my point, you see. Everybody having a go, but this always seems to happen. We now get to have 2 weeks where I'm sure this will come up. It's going to rear its ugly head all throughout them. That's for sure. There'll be no preview, obviously, to worry about for the weekend because there's no game that we're going to care about. But we will indeed be putting shows out there. There'll be a show on Wednesday, and I'm sure there'll be a Saturday Night Live of some sort, maybe. So we'll try and maintain that. Then the Wednesday after, young Benjamin should be on with another friend of the channel, Tony Park. This guy has got more information in one ring binder about Manchester United's youth academies than I've got in like every single book and bit of internet knowledge that I could get. So that's definitely going to be a show to come in and have a look on. If you're sitting there thinking about the academy and what we've got to look forward to in the future. So that'll be a big one. It's not this Wednesday, should be the Wednesday after. So we'll look forward to seeing you for that one. I'm going to make sure that we close the show down properly this time. So you're not just sat there watching us all going, ooh. So we'll see where we go. But it's been a pleasure. Put your chins up. All right. It was only 3. It could have been worse. And there is progression. I promise you, we're going to finish in that top 4. And when City get relegated, you can all thank me then. Good night.